In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at two different 360-degree cameras. We've got the Yi 360 VR and the Ricoh Theta V, and I'm assuming it's pronounced V rather than 5, given the previous models in the range used letters. But about pronunciation, whenever I feature a product from the company Yi, I'll always get quite a few people telling me that I'm pronouncing it wrong. In China, those letters are pronounced E. Well, according to their international promotional video, they pronounce it like this.
The Yi 360 VR camera delivers stunning video and images in 360. The Yi 360 VR Yi 360
So Yi it is as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, now on with the rest of the video. The Theta V camera is one that I bought for myself back in August, and I was planning on making a video about it, then taking it on holiday next year. One thing led to another, and I put that project to one side for a while. However, in the meantime, a couple of weeks ago, the Yi 360 VR camera was sent to me by the manufacturers free of charge for the purpose of making a video review, and I thought, well, great opportunity to get the Theta V out alongside the Yi 360 VR and do a comparison, a head-to-head test to see which of these two cameras is the best. Now, the Theta V is the follow-up to the Theta S. I reviewed that one back in January 2016, and there isn't an awful lot of difference between them. The Theta V has added 4K video, much higher resolution than the previous one, which was pretty hopeless. It's also added in 360-degree sound to go with the video. It's got a microphone on both sides of the camera, and also it's took away the micro HDMI port on the bottom and replaced it with a microphone input, which attaches to this 3D microphone. You don't have to use this, but it improves the sound quality. But you see, when you add the microphone to the camera itself, it ends up quite expensive. So I haven't got the microphone, I've just got the camera to test, which cost me £399. And as you can see, I bought that camera back in August 17 with the intention of making a review, but after a couple of weeks of using it, I realised there wasn't really enough difference between it and the previous model to warrant a whole new review video. So it's a good job that the Yi 360 camera was sent to me, because now I can get hold of the footage I'd shot for the original Theta video, which was never going to see the light of day, and compare it against new footage of the Yi 360. So going back to the Theta camera first of all, inside the box you get a neoprene sleeve, you get a short USB lead which has a micro B connector on the end that goes into the camera, you get an instruction booklet, and of course the camera itself. The Theta V can be distinguished from the previous model, the Theta S, because it's got this smooth silver grey coating, whereas the Theta S had a rubberized black finish. Now, inside the Yi box, as well as the camera, you also get a tripod, and the battery in this one is replaceable. It's kept separately in the package there at the bottom. The Theta, the battery is built in, as is the memory, whereas in the Yi camera, you'll need to provide your own micro SD card. You'll need a good fast one as well, U3, to be able to cope with the high-resolution video requirements. The instruction booklet is in multiple languages. You also get a little pouch to keep the camera in, and the USB is Type-C, which is great for fast data transfer. That tripod, by the way, is all metal. It's pretty well made. It's got rubber feet on the bottom. You can see it goes out a long way. That's so that you don't tip your camera over when you're taking photos, but you could perhaps also use it as a handle to hold the camera up with. The battery type is the same as used in the Yi action camera range, so opening the flap on the side of the camera, we can see the slot for that, as well as the USB-C, micro SD card and micro HDMI output. So put the battery in the side of here. Now I should have really probably put the memory in first, but I'm using a good fast memory card because it can record up to 5.7K. Now to switch the camera on, you hold the button on the side, there's a screen on the top, and you've got two buttons by the side of there to go through the different menus. You'll need to download an accompanying app for iOS, Android or for Windows, but you can get straight off and running with the camera itself. Go through the menu, set it up, and you're ready to go. You can see on the screen here I can switch through the different modes, as well as get into the settings, turn the Wi-Fi on and off, etc. So switching on the camera is a matter of holding down that button. The light comes on the front, the screen goes on the top, and you're ready to go. You just need to press the button on the side if you want to take a photo, or change the modes, of course, using the menus on the top. Moving into video mode is a couple down, and then you can press the button on the side and that will start recording video. While it records video, you can see the light flashes on the camera, and of course, obviously, to stop recording video, you just press that button again. Now the Theta also has apps for iOS or Android, but of course you can use the camera on its own without relying on the apps. To do that, you switch it on the side. Once it comes on, you can see the mode from the display on the front here. We're in the photo mode at the moment. To change mode, you press the bottom button between photo and video. Of course, it's a simpler system here. We don't have as many options in the camera itself, but if we want to take a photo, we just press the button in the middle there, and if we want to move into the video mode, press the mode button. And then when we start recording, you can see a red light flashing at the bottom there while video's recording. The only other button on the side turns the Wi-Fi on and off. Of course, you'll want to switch it off when you're not using it to save on battery power, but that button also has a second function. If you hold down the Wi-Fi button when you turn the camera on, it will activate the self-timer mode with a green light at the top there, and that means when you press the button, there's a delay before the camera takes a picture. Very handy to hold it up on a stick or put it on a tripod and run away and get everyone in shot. There is a self-timer mode, of course, on the Yi. It's accessible through the menus and it functions in much the same way, but of course on the Yi you have access to the different delays on there, so you can adjust it within the camera itself without going back to the app. Now there's a noticeable difference in the boot up times on both these cameras, or the time it takes after switching it on before you can take your first photo. So I'm showing you on the screen here how long it's taking. I've switched this one on. I can't take a photo yet, but as soon as I can I'll stop the stopwatch. There we go. And it's about 10 and a bit seconds. So let's try that now with the Theta V. This is quite a bit slower. So the last one was 10 and a bit. So switching this one on now, going through the whole boot process here. Now you'll know when I'll be able to take a picture because the picture of a camera will appear at the bottom of the screen. If I try it now, nothing happens. So I've got to wait for it to get into the photo mode. So as soon as it appears, I'll try and take a picture and we'll see how long it's taking. So we're already double the time of the other one and still not there. There we go. Right, we could take it now. So probably a bit late with stopwatch, so about sort of 26 seconds or something. So yeah, a lot slower anyway. Okay, first of all, I want to show you the different options and settings that are available within the Yi 360 VR camera's menus itself without resorting to the app. So first off, we can choose the different modes. We go from photo to video to time-lapse, and then beyond there we get into various settings. The settings mode appears based on the mode that you were last in. So video settings will appear if you were shooting video, and if you were taking a photo, if you go down the menus, you'll see the photo settings mode appear. So I'm in photo now, so if I go down 4, the photo settings appear. So let me just go through these, and I'm not going to go through everything in great detail. I just want to show you how many different things you can change because there's quite a lot. Now the first one, distance, well, second one, stitching, I'll talk about that later, but this one, distance, how far away is the things that you're going to be shooting? I'll show you more on that later on, but we've also got things to do with scenes. Now, I was thinking about this. A lot of these things, of course, you're changing the settings, but you don't really know how the end image is going to look until you look at it on your phone. But if you're getting your phone out and connecting it up to the camera, maybe you should be changing the settings on the phone anyway. And some of these aren't much use. Things like self-timer, fair enough, I can understand that, but things like messing with the ISO and the exposure value, well, you're only really going to know the results of those settings changes when you look at the end photo. So you might as well just be looking at the live viewfinder on the app, and then you can make the settings changes within the phone app itself, and you can see the end result coming through on the screen straight away. So some of these things, I'm not too sure whether anyone's ever going to change them. Maybe someone's happy that they're in here, but for me, I'm going to leave everything pretty much on automatic. Now, if I just go into the video settings, you'll see much the same things mentioned here, so I don't need to go through these in too much detail. Other than the video option at the top, all we can do at the moment is shoot in 4K 25 frames a second, but we can adjust the bit rate on that between 3 different amounts. Now, I'll go down a couple here, past the looping on and off and the in-camera stitching, and you can see all the rest of the stuff is the same that we had before in the photo mode. Now, to get additional video options, we take the stitching off. The in-camera stitching can only go up to 4K. So if we turn stitching off and then have a look at the video, you can see we've got additional options that go all the way up to 5.7K. But to stitch 5.7K, you've got to do it in a Windows computer. You can't do it using the phone apps. And then below there, we've got voice control. We can get the camera to do various functions like take a photo by saying Yi action take photo, but I haven't tried those. And then we can change the video standards down here between PAL and NTSC. And once we've done that, of course, that will then change the frame rates further up. And there's a few different options down here for the beep volume and things. You can also plug an external mic into this as well, by the way. So if we go back into those video settings that we were just looking at, now I've changed it into NTSC. You can see we've got NTSC frame rates 30 frames a second or 2.5K at 60 frames. And then finally onto the time-lapse mode, you can get the interval between frames all the way down to every 0.5 seconds or all the way up to 1 frame every 60 seconds, and that does create a video rather than a load of photos. Right, it's finally time to have a look at some of the photos and videos I've shot with both cameras. To demonstrate them to you, I'm going to be looking at them on my phone like this and capturing the video output over a wire. That's what you'll be seeing in the video. Now, there's a few different ways you could look at these. You could use the phone gyroscope to look around the image itself, or if you wanted, you could also split it into two. It won't be 3D, but you could then put it into some of those VR goggles. But anyway, let's have a look at the Theta V first of all. Two quick things before I show you that though. The app on the iPhone is still called Theta S, so that's why I misspeak in this first section and call the camera a Theta S. It is of course a Theta V. The second thing is you're going to be looking at quite a bit of vertical video here, and it's unfortunate, but that's just a part of the capture process. I'm unable to switch between horizontal and vertical orientation without the capture stopping. So apologies in advance, but let's have a look at some video. Right, so now I'm recording with the Theta camera and Theta S, that is. This is the maximum resolution 4K. So see how this looks. I'll just do the usual walk around. A little bit too close to the camera here for these shots, by the way, because I won't properly stitch together. It's more for things a little bit further away. But I'll turn back to the corner. Right, without any further ado, let's have a look at the same scene but shot with the Yi camera. Right, so in this one I've got it in 4K. That's the highest resolution that you can get it to stitch inside the camera. So this is the mode that you use when you're just using it with your phone and not using it with a computer to stitch the video together. And I'll again just walk around the camera so that we can get a bit of an idea of the 360-degree sound and return back to the phone with it. Right, now while we look at a photo from both cameras being played back on screen, starting with the Yi 360, I just want to go back and talk about the videos we've looked at. Those were both shot in the 4K mode, and they're pretty comparable as far as the video quality goes. I've also got to say I'm very happy with the sound quality. Given those little tiny microphones, they do pick up a very good sound. The only issue was the video and the audio were out of sync on the Theta camera, whereas on the Yi camera they were perfectly in sync. And I've done nothing to these videos at all. All I've done is download them from the cameras to the apps and then played them back via that lead and captured the image on screen. So unfortunately the Theta's capturing out of sync audio for some reason. Okay, now with this camera there's a couple of shooting options. Well, three in fact. You can choose the distance, whether you're indoors, selfie or outdoors. Now, I don't really know what this distance would be called. I suppose this would be indoors, but when I get to here it's selfie. So I've left it in outdoors for the moment. We'll just see how that looks. So at the moment I'm talking straight onto one of the camera lenses. I noticed this is a little bit slanted, but anyway. Now I'm going to go on the side here, so I'm actually talking directly to the side of the camera. So there's one lens over there, splitting in the middle, so there should be a pretty noticeable join here. But I'm going to change the mode into indoors and selfie. We'll see if that makes any difference. But before I do that, I'll just walk off into the darker part of the garage here and we'll just see how well the camera copes with resolving an image in such a dull environment as this. And while I'm here, I've got a Bluetooth remote, so I can stop the camera and take a couple of photos. Right, so I've set the distance to selfie mode now, which I'm guessing means that I can get right up to the camera and it stitches me better than if I'd got it set into the outdoors mode. So again, I'm on the join between the two lenses, one going either side, and we'll see if the stitching's any different on this. And I'm just going to do one more setting. We're going to set it to indoors mode and see if that makes any difference. In fact, I'll go a little bit closer for selfie mode just to see if this is a noticeable join. Right, let's change it again. And this is on the indoor mode, so it's all about the distance, and I'm guessing it's doing something with the convergence, but you know, can't be entirely sure until I have a look back at this. So let me stop the recording. Right, now this is the second time I've shot this segment with the Theta camera, because the first time I shot it, I couldn't play the video. It looked fine, it transferred across. Every time you try and play it, whether it's in the iPad app or the iPhone app, just crashed out, crashed the whole app. So I don't know what that's about. Anyway, here's take two. This is the only time I'm going to do it again, and yeah, this is full resolution on the Theta in the indoor environment. Just get an idea as to how it copes in a kind of bit of a subdued lighting environment, and also how it copes with the lenses, how they converge the image together, or stitch it I should say, because at the moment I'm directly on the edge of the camera, so one lens is pointed that way, one the other way. I'm right in the middle, so if there's any noticeable join, you should be seeing it right down the middle of my face now. Now I'll just move into the darker part of the garage here, just to give you an idea as to how it copes with resolving images in lower light. But that's it. Now I'm going to switch it off manually, because last time I was using the app I thought, well, maybe if I do it manually it won't have the same effect. I really don't know what the problem was, but anyway, let me turn it off. Right, so a couple of things that I've picked up from that. The Theta definitely has sound synchronization issues. The audio and video are just slightly out of sync, but enough for it to be annoying. However, on the other hand, the Yi camera has issues trying to stitch the video together when you side on to the two lenses. Of course, it's fine if you're straight on, but if you go down the side, it has trouble getting those two images together if you're close up to it. And it's easy to see why, because it has quite a large dead area on the side compared to the Theta camera, much thinner camera, and of course much easier for it to stitch. In fact, if you look down at the tripod straight underneath the camera, you can see the Yi can only see a very thin section of the centre part, whereas the Theta can actually see the base that it's stood on. So as far as the problem with the Yi goes, well, make sure there's nothing close up to the camera side on and you'll be fine. When it comes to the Theta and out of sync video, well, unless they update the firmware, I can't really see what I can do about that. But anyway, going on to photos, there's not much to choose between the two cameras. Sometimes one will take a better photo than the other, then it will reverse depending on the actual image that you're taking. But one thing you will notice if you've got a Theta V, same as the previous model, is this red dot. It starts to get on your nerves, because every time you take a 360-degree photo, once you realise that there'll be a red dot on it, you start playing Hunt the Red Dot, and you'll find it pretty much in all of them. It's something to do with the way the light hits the lenses. But whenever you've got a decent light source in one direction, you get either one or two red dots showing up on all your photos, and it really starts to become a bit of an issue. I haven't noticed it on the Yi at all. Now let's have a look at some of the photos that I've taken with the Yi here. Again, I'm sorry I'm showing you these in vertical. I'll show you a horizontal one in a bit. But usually the videos and photos do play back better in this vertical orientation, because you're seeing a thinner slice of the image. As soon as you see it wide angle, you start to notice the fisheye popping in. Now, I've been taking these photos using a selfie stick, or at least a stick to get the camera away from my body a bit, because if you just hold it in your hand, you get a lot of hand in shot. You also get your arm and your body. It's taking out half the image. You're better off extending the camera as far away from your body as you can, so that you can get more of the background and less of you, unless you really want to get yourself in all the shots. It's not really my scene. One thing I do sometimes is hold the stick up above my head, and then you can do a full 360-degree zoom around without seeing me on the shots at all. Now, of course, 360-degree photos can't be compared against normal photos, because you've got a 60 megapixel sensor, but what you're doing is you're using it to record the sky and the ground and all the things that you're not looking at. You're only looking at a very small section of it at a time. One thing I've noticed here, they tend to blur the image towards the edges, and then when you bring the thing in towards the centre, it sharpens up. I don't know if that's some kind of effect they've put on it. And another thing I need to mention, look at the horizon there, how I've got it wrong. That's because I've tilted the camera a little bit, and I want to talk about that more in a second. But let's move on and have a look at one shot that I took with the Theta V in this location a couple of months before. You can see it's nice and sunny here, but also one thing I want to point out, look how nice and straight that image is, but also the fisheye. The Theta V tends to take a more sort of zoomed out image, so you have to zoom in a little bit if you want to get things so they don't look like they're bending in towards the centre. And of course there's the infamous red dot. In fact, there's two of them there as well. But anyway, we'll zoom in a little bit just to get it a bit straighter, but then of course you're losing quite a bit of the resolution because you're zooming in. even more. But yeah, I want to talk about this horizon thing, how I've got this perfectly straight. Well, it's not down to how I've held the camera. It's because the Theta itself has a gyroscope, an orientation sensor in it, so it knows which way's up. So it doesn't really matter how you hold the camera when you take a photo. You can hold it at any old angle, and it will always orient your picture straight, which is a great feature. Unfortunately, that isn't the same for the E360. It takes the picture exactly as you held it, so you've got to be very careful to hold that camera perfectly straight, and not just left and right, forward and back as well, otherwise you're going to get a tilt on it when you scroll around the image. Now, one advantage the Yi has over the Theta is its ability to record in this higher resolution mode. They call it 5.7K, which is 5760 by 2880. Both cameras will record in 3840 by 1920 and stitch it in the camera itself. But if you want to record in the Yi's higher resolution mode, you record it as an unstitched video. You then import that video over the USB lead into a Windows PC, put it into this program, and then set it about stitching it, which on my computer took quite a while. In fact, when I tried to play it back, it crashed the computer. It was just too much for it to handle. I've imported those stitched files into this video though, so we can see what they look like. It's not going to be able to show you the full resolution unless I zoom in on them, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to crop in on a section of the image, and then we'll compare it with the 4K version just to see if there really is any difference between the two, if it's worth recording in this mode, because it is quite a hassle to use, having to export it and then put it into another program. But if we look at the 5.7K crop here, and then we bring in the 4K crop and put them side by side, we can see, yes, there is an improvement in the 5.7K. You notice it on the hose pipe on the left there, the green thing, and you can see more detail on my shirt. So yes, there is more resolution in the 5.7K version, but it's really down to you whether you can be bothered to use it. Personally, I'm just going to stick to using the 4K mode because it's just too much effort to record everything in 5.7K. And of course, one important consideration is having the ability to play back the video that you've shot. There's no point shooting video and then finding you've got nothing that's capable of playing it back smoothly. I'd much rather record in 4K, even if it is a little bit softer, because it means that I can play it back on any of my devices. And to wrap up this demonstration section, here's a very short video that I recorded using the time-lapse mode with a 0.5 second interval. Now let's take a look at the iOS apps for both devices, starting off with the Yi. Now once you've connected up to the camera, you get a live viewfinder at the top of the screen that you can scroll around. At the bottom of the screen, we can switch between photo, video and time-lapse modes and start and stop recording in any of those using the button above there. And then above that button, we've got the options for the mode that we're in, that we mentioned before when we're in the camera menus, things like ISO and scene and sharpness and things. If we go towards the top, we get into the camera settings, and we can have the settings for photo, and again the same thing pops up for video, all the same options that we had available in the camera itself. If we go into the camera's photos, you can see at the top of the screen where it says camera, it's underlined, so these are the images and videos that are on the camera itself. And if we click on one of these, we're now looking at a preview of the image. We're streaming it from the camera to the phone, and it works fine. We can do the same thing with video, but this is a lower resolution thumbnail in a way. To download the proper one, we click the download button at the bottom, it transfers that one across to the phone, and then we can just carry on looking at that. It works really well. Now if you look down the images, at the top left of some of them you'll see a picture of a phone, and that means those ones have already been transferred from the camera into the phone app. Now there's one part of this I haven't looked into at all, and it's the ability for these cameras to transmit live over the internet. Now I believe the Yi does a better job of this because it's able to do it using your mobile phone over the mobile phone network as long as you've got enough bandwidth, whereas I think the Theta relies on you connecting it up to a computer, so it's not something you can do out and about. But correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's just something I really don't know anything about. One thing that I do know about is that using this app you can take a snapshot out of a 360-degree image, or you can edit your images. If we look here, we can see we can put various effects on it. Look at the sky on this one when I put the HDR on, for example. Nice image that. But unfortunately, it doesn't apply those changes to the original 360-degree version of the image, so you can't scroll around it once you've made the alterations. No, instead it creates a photo, a still like the image that you see at the top of the screen, and then saves that to your phone's photo library. Now moving on briefly to the Theta S application for the Theta V camera, they could really do with thinking about renaming that. At the top of the screen I can move between photo and video mode. If I press the cog at the right hand side, it will take me into the settings that are appropriate to the mode that I'm currently in. It's a little bit of a cleaner layout, this, less options to choose initially, although there are quite a few options if you drill down into the menus. I think there are less settings overall though than on the Yi camera, but I'm not against the idea because I'd rather a lot of these things were automatic on a camera of this type. Now if we look in the shooting method page, the second one down, interval shooting, time-lapse in other words, if we look at the settings that appear for that, the minimum amount of time between each image is 4 seconds, which isn't particularly good for interval shooting. Remember, the Yi camera could go down to 0.5 seconds between images. Now, if you look at the self timer, we can change the amount of time on that from 2 seconds all the way up to 10 seconds. And I tend to leave mine at a quite low 2 seconds, just long enough to press the button and hold a selfie stick up above your head. Now you can see here on the viewfinder we've got a few different options, and we can even switch it off as well, but this is the default one which shows the whole image in one go. And then below that we can change a few of the settings. We can add noise reduction, dynamic range compensation and HDR rendering. It does add a bit of a weird colour I found when I used HDR on this one. Also we've got the options like shutter priority as well as ISO, all that kind of stuff. There's a slightly different way of viewing the images in this one. Rather than streaming a thumbnail from the camera, instead you click on one of these images and it downloads the full resolution version straight away. It's as broad as it's long really, because it's more than likely you're going to download that full res version to your phone regardless, and there aren't as many options to edit and mess around with the image. You can just share it from here and choose the orientation. Now when it comes to playing back the photos or videos you've taken from the device itself, well, you can't with the Yi. That HDMI output, all that sends is a live viewfinder of the thing you're about to take a picture of. However, with the Theta camera, you can transmit the images that you've got on the camera over Wi-Fi to an appropriate Miracast enabled device, and using the gyroscope in the camera itself you're able to get around the menus and click on the video or photo you want to show, and then once you've got it on screen you can manipulate it, you can move around the image. But while all that sounds great, I found it incredibly tricky to control. It's like being blind drunk and trying to get your key in a door, and the door is actually on a boat and the boat's in a terrible storm. It's almost impossible to get it to do what you want it to. Now moving back to the Yi camera, one thing that it supports is this Bluetooth selfie stick. It's an optional extra, however it's very useful. It enables you to change between the photo and video mode, and you can start and stop your recording or take photos using the button at the bottom. Just the thing for taking those images with you positioned a bit of a distance away from the camera itself. Now the Theta camera has employed Bluetooth this time around as well as the Wi-Fi, so if I switch off the Wi-Fi on this I can still control it via Bluetooth with my phone. If I go into the application and go in the live viewfinder, I don't see what the camera's seeing, obviously because it's not sending back the video over Wi-Fi, but I am still able to take photos as well as move between the photo and video modes and start and stop recording. However, I wish they also sold a separate Bluetooth remote control. And finally, moving back to the Yi, I've got to say this screen is very useful for changing settings when you're out and about, other than for the fact that it's incredibly difficult to see once you're outdoors in bright sunlight. Right, so we've been here a while, surely we've decided which of these is the best. Well, it isn't quite as simple as that because they've both got pros and cons. Let's look at those in more detail, starting off with the Theta V. Well, my favourite feature is the gyroscopic orientation, which keeps the images and photos nice and straight no matter what angle you were holding the camera at when you took them. And of course it's used in that playback mode, which is tricky to get the hang of, but it is a very useful feature. And also the camera of course is nice and slim, so you can slip it into a pocket easily. On the negative side though, the video and audio were out of sync. You'll get that red dot appearing on most of your images. The memory is non-expandable, it's only got 19 gigs built in. The battery itself will last for 80 minutes on one charge in the 4K mode, but you can't carry spares with you, and that slow startup has resulted in me missing some shots that I wanted to take. Meanwhile, over on the Yi 360 VR side of the fence, well, the positives are that it's got expandable memory, although of course you do need to provide your own memory card in the first place. It also has a removable battery, but will record for 1 hour on one charge in the stitched 4K mode. You can record in the higher 5.7K resolution. We've got that built-in screen on the top, the option for that Bluetooth selfie stick, which is very handy, and USB-C for quick data transfer. On the negatives, it's quite a bit chunkier than the other camera. Close-up stitching from side on isn't very good at all. You really need to be straight onto a lens if you're up close to the camera, and it's difficult to see that screen when you're outside. So if you were thinking of buying either of these two cameras, I hope this video has helped point you towards the one with the feature set that you need. And if you do want to buy one now, there'll be Amazon links in the video description text box. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.
Is that it? I've sat through 30 odd minutes for nothing!
What have you been watching?
It was an overlong video about 360-degree cameras that, quite frankly, gave me motion sickness.
So why did you watch it all then?
Well, I approved of the vertical video, which quite frankly is the only correct way to watch video. However, I thought it was going to be a Christmas episode!
Why would you think that?
Well, at this time of year, everything's supposed to be a Christmas special.
But I thought you hated Christmas.
I do, but how am I supposed to complain about its oversaturation when this guy doesn't even mention it?
Sometimes I just don't understand you.
That's probably to do with the weak scripts and the bad voice acting, which quite often doesn't even match up with the mouth. Hold on, what's that?
Oh, this? I'm doing product placement.
But why's your face on it? I was here first.
Because I'm the one that people like the most.
So what does that make me?
The one that people love to hate.
What, like JR from Dallas?
Oh, up-to-date cultural reference there, Daddy-O. No, I'm thinking more like Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, now that's a really current reference. Anyway, I wouldn't want my face on overpriced merchandise. I'm no puppet.
Yeah, about that. I think it's time we had a chat.